Morning and welcome to Pot Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Shane Matthews here for a Thursday edition of the program. We're glad you're along for the ride. We got a great show lined up today. We got Blake Alderman from Swamp 24/7 Sports going to talk a little recruiting. And then around 8:20, we're going to have the most decorated female Olympic athlete of all time, Dara Torres, join us. But now we're going to go to the Titan MRI hotline. And we're joined by Blake Alderman, as I mentioned, from Swamp 24/7 Sports. Good morning, Blake. How are you?
Good morning. Sorry I'm not in a decorated Olympic, but I guess I'll just have to do.
Hey, you're kicking it off for a decorated Olympic. There you go.
Everyone needs an opening act. I'm okay with being that guy.
That's right. So, Blake, obviously, you can fill us in on what's going on with recruiting with the Gators and around the SEC. Basically, everyone's having to do these virtual recruiting trips. Tell us a little bit about what's going on.
Yeah, I think they're a pretty cool deal, and I think I've actually said that I think it's something that could be adopted by the NCAA. I don't know. I'm sure once, things kind of, go back to normal, they're going to put, a little bit more rules enforced. Right now, coaches can do unlimited calls, which is usually not the norm. You can do unlimited Zoom calls. So there's a little bit more. I think little things are a little bit more lax right now as far as that. But, a kid and his family, Florida has tried to make sure that, they'll reschedule a time to make sure that your family is able to log on to the Zoom call and talk to the coaching staff. So essentially you log in with your family. You get a chance to kind of see some clips around campus. I know some of the guys, they've actually driven them around campus and shown them, Lake Alice where there's Gators. They've taken them to the dorms. They take them to the Hawkins Center where they have the academic advisors and all that. They've taken had a couple kids even talk to, some of the academic people in the major that they want to study. You can have Nick Savage and the strength and conditioning staff log in, nutritionists, all the coaching staff. You get to have a chance to talk with, your area recruiters, your position recruiters, and Dan Mullen. So, they actually last about an hour and a half, 2 hours. So they're pretty informative. I've even heard some of the recruits that I've talked to say that even some players kind of jump in there and kind of give their perspective of things. So all in all, they seem to go really well for Florida. And I think it's something that it's good because, at this time, with no visits and the recruiting dead period, being extended through the month of June. I mean, Florida's lost, this entire offseason pretty much of a chance to do visits and, kind of really sell their brand. And the staff really does a good job of, on-campus visits. Really, you can tell these coaches are really, jacked to be at Florida. They're really excited. And I think that when you can see their excitement, it's hard to do that over the phone. So I think being able to do that over a Zoom call and, kind of put a name to a face, especially for some of these kids who are out-of-state kids who have never visited and haven't been able to, I think there's nothing but positives from these. And Florida's, maybe Florida started a little bit later on these than some of these other schools, but they've been by far the most aggressive school in the country with these. They have 3 or 4 Zoom visits a day with kids. So they're definitely staying active with it.
Speaking with Blake Alderman from 27 Sports. 24/7 Sports. Blake, before we start into who the Gators are talking to right now on these virtual recruiting visits, were you surprised, the Zach Evans, the top running back in the country out of the state of Texas, who initially signed with Georgia, got out of that letter of intent, and then Florida was in the mix, Tennessee was in the mix, some other schools, and then he signs with TCU. Was that a surprise to you?
Yes and no. I think yes in the sense that, TCU wasn't even really being mentioned at any point. And no, in the fact that Zach Evans has probably been one of the wildest recruitments that I think I've seen since I've covered recruiting. So when you have a guy like that, I think you kind of have to expect the unexpected. And I think that this coronavirus, this dead period, and kind of what recruiting has turned into right now, I think that was really hurt Florida because a couple months back, Zach Evans was set to take an official visit to Florida. I think it was March 20th that weekend or something to that. I'm pretty sure that's what it was. Sometime in late March, he was supposed to take the official visit. Obviously, the dead period rolls in. That keeps him from visiting. You go through March to April to May, no visits. And, Zach was looking to enroll somewhere in summer A, if not summer B. And I think just looking at the dead period that's continued to roll in, I think Zach had to make a call to where, and I think a lot of kids are going to be doing this to where, you see him kind of figure things out to where they stay in state. I think that's where TCU kind of emerged in there. They had been kind of, after the fact, you find this out that they had been kind of involved here and there kind of behind the scenes, so to say. And I think that it's unfortunate for Florida because I think they had a great shot at landing him, but then, no visit, and you have to go through the entire summer of no visit. And I just don't see a kid like that taking, and taking the plunge on a school that he's never been to before. So I think that, yes, TCU was a big surprise to me, but, when you got a guy like Zach Evans, I think you have to expect to be surprised with a kid like that.
We got a Facebook Live comment here brought to you by Pound Hurt, your preferred business interruption attorneys. Mary Helen says, "Good morning from Crescent Beach." I think she's rubbing it in that she's at the beach and we're stuck in studios here. Blake, let's get to some of the kids that the Gators are really high on and have an opportunity to get to wear the orange and blue.
Florida's got a lot of top targets on their board still. I think some of the guys that really jump out as the biggest, they're really in it, and really pressing hard for a crew from Miami Palmetto High School down in Miami. Guys like five-star Leonard Taylor, five-star cornerback Jason Marshall. Leonard Taylor is a defensive tackle. And there's plenty of other, guys at Palmetto High School, like four-star safety Corey Collier. There's a slot receiver, Brashard Smith, and then there's another defensive tackle who is committed to Miami, but is still giving Florida a look in Savion Collins. So I think that Taylor, Marshall, and Collier, of those guys, are probably the more top targets for Florida. But they're really trying to get that, '07 Lakeland type of feel with the Miami Palmetto kids. And they've done a really good job. Brian Johnson recruited Miami-Dade County for Florida, and he's done a really good job. Recruited a lot of those guys since their sophomore year. Marshall and Collier took virtual visits last week. I believe Marshall was Thursday last week and Collier was Friday for last week. The other guys from Miami Palmetto, I think that you'll see them more likely get something set up and, maybe next week or the week after. I haven't heard any dates or anything set up as far as those guys. Florida's really looking for a lot of athletic linebackers this cycle too. Xavier Sori, he's out of Graceville up there, and near the Panhandle area up there. Really high on Florida. Really likes Georgia and Alabama as well, but Florida has really prioritized him. Christian Robinson has done a good job. He's recruited him. I think Florida was actually his first offer back in like his freshman year. So Florida's been a factor in here for a while. Christian Robinson is close with not only him, but his mother and his father. So, it's kind of a family affair there. And, I don't know that he's a guy that's going to decide early, so to say. He's even thinking at this point to sign in December or even sign in February. So I think that's one that's going to be kind of a marathon recruitment, but I expect Florida to be really thick in the mix there. Another guy from Ocala Vanguard. He's a four-star defensive end, Bryce Langston. He's a former Florida commit. He backed off of that kind of early on, and right now it's between Florida and LSU. I don't know that he really has a timeline for a decision or anything like that. He doesn't seem like he's on fire. But I have a hard time seeing him go to LSU. I think that, kind of staying close to home and Florida is the appeal there. And how hard they prioritized him. It's funny, he actually posted on his Twitter the other day. I believe his birthday is coming up on May 23rd. I think he posted, and Florida actually like flooded his mailbox with, I didn't even count them, but probably like 30 to 40 little pieces of mail in there saying happy birthday. So, if that doesn't tell you that guy's a priority, then I don't know what else would tell you.
His teammate is committed to the Gators, correct?
Correct. Trevante Rucker.
Yes, yes. Let's talk a little bit about we got a transfer. We lost a transfer to Miami, offensive lineman, but we gained one who John Hevesy was very familiar with, played for Dan Mullen. Talk a little bit about the transfer offensive lineman from Mississippi State.
Yeah, Stuart Reese. He's a graduate transfer, so he'll be able to play immediately for Florida. He graduated from Mississippi State. He was recruited to Mississippi State by Dan Mullen and John Hevesy. He played, I believe, his first 2 years. He played right tackle for Florida, and then this past season they moved him over into guard. So, Florida's getting a guy, at a position like offensive line where they struggled last year, and it really kind of hindered their run game. I think you're looking now at that kind of offensive line when you look at what Florida's got now and what they can trot out next season. I think you're starting to see the signs of a John Hevesy type of offensive line where you've just got a bunch of big dudes that are just going to physically run you over. And I think that you're starting to see them kind of build up more in the trenches. And I think Reese is big in the fact that you've got a guy that, if you got a team like Florida where they're struggling on the offensive line, and you've got a little bit more flexibility because Reese has the opportunity to play tackle and he can play guard. I like those plug and play guys. I know Florida's really high on those type of plug and play type of guys. And I think he's going to play guard for Florida. I think right now Florida's a little short up at tackle. I really think Richard Garage is the one to me that jumps out. I think he's going to take that next step of being that left tackle. He's got that athleticism for the offensive tackle position. I think he's a little bit more suited. That's my opinion of the left tackle. And I think that frees you up some little bit, it frees you up to move Stone Forsyth over on the right side of the offensive line. I think John DeLance kind of struggled a little bit there for Florida last year. So I think you can kind of move things around and you can find the best fit. And obviously missing spring football kind of hindered you to kind of figure out some guys that you signed in the 19 class and maybe even what you've got in some of the freshmen that enrolled early for the 2020 class. But, I think Reese is a big boost. I think that the fact that you got someone who has that leadership, knows the scheme, it's not going to be this hard transition to get him in there because he's really familiar with everything. He's familiar with the coaching style that John Hevesy has, that kind of rough around the edges coaching. I don't see any negative. I think this is actually Dan Mullen and his staff has been very active in getting guys out of the transfer portal, and I think this is his biggest get yet.
Good stuff. Hey, Blake, I know you don't follow Tennessee. You're focusing on the Gators for Swamp 24/7 Sports. But what in the world's going on up there? Especially, I mean, it's not like they're winning championships. They still haven't beat any quality teams. But man, Jeremy Pruitt and his staff are doing something right, apparently.
Yeah, no doubt. Jeremy Pruitt is a great recruiter. I think you can look at his track record when he was at Florida State, Alabama, just any other school. I mean, he's always been a great recruiter, and I think you're going to see him do that at Tennessee. I think we have already seen him land quite a few guys. But I'll be honest with you, at this point, I think that a lot of these kids, at the point of where, there's a dead period and there's been a dead period, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it's a big jump from how many guys have been committed to this point right now in the year compared to years past. I know it's at least double for the last 2 years where there's, I'm not right here in the numbers, but let's say there's about 350 some odd kids that commit around normal time this time of the year. I think right now they're pushing somewhere in like the 600, 700. So, I mean, it's a big jump of guys who are committing to schools. And I think a lot of that has to do with the dead period. Guys are sitting around at home. Maybe they're securing a spot. Maybe, they're just bored and they want to make a commitment. I am interested to see, yes, where we're getting a big run of commitments. Tennessee, I think, sitting at like 22 or 21 some odd commits. So, I mean, their class is really full right now. And if you look at some of the guys that they've landed, just to be completely honest here, I don't know that some of those guys would be a take at a place like Florida. So I think you're seeing them kind of fill up. Yes, they're riding a hot hand. Yes, they've got some big time guys in their class, but I'm interested to see how things go down the road, because I see a lot of these guys in their class that are going to continue to take visits. And where I'm seeing a big spike in commitments now, I think down the road, we're going to see an even bigger spike of decommitments and guys that are continuing to do their recruitment. I mean, it happens every year. I mean, decommitments happen. And I think this year with just the fact that guys are taking virtual visits and, maybe I've seen a couple kids here and there that have actually, committed to schools that I don't even know that they visited before. So I think that this coming year, I think we're going to see a big spike in kids that are going to continue to kind of go business as usual with their recruitment or maybe even decommit. So I think Tennessee's going to get hit a little bit there down the road, but I'm interested to see obviously a big season for them or some kind of turnaround will kind of shore those things up. But I mean, we haven't seen that kind of season from Tennessee there. So I think a lot of it's to be seen with those guys.
We got another question here for you, Blake, on Facebook Live, brought to you by Pound Hurt, your preferred business interruption attorneys. And I'm not sure if you're going to know the answer to this because you basically follow recruiting for the Gators, but it comes from Hunter. He wants to know, what do you think about the two Mississippi State guys, Jarian Jones and Fabian Lovett, rumored to be transferring to Ole Miss? Lovett announced he is going to enroll at FSU, but has been linked to Ole Miss lately. Are you even familiar with those guys?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not big time familiar. Jaron Jones, I know, just put his name into the transfer portal. I think there's some smoke right now about Ole Miss being the pick for him. I don't know that it's a complete thought that he's not coming back to Mississippi State. I think there's some people there that feel that he could come back. Joe Moorhead was the coach that recruited him to Mississippi State, so Oregon's in the mix. So, I don't really know exactly what's going to go on there. I would be pretty shocked if he didn't stay in state. I know a lot of times it's hard to pull those guys from Mississippi out of Mississippi. With Fabian Lovett, it's funny. He committed to Florida State, I think like a month and a half ago or something to that effect. Committed there, and now he's kind of gone a little low key on Florida State. They're having a little bit of trouble kind of keeping up with him. Right now, it's looking like another guy that's like he said, like Hunter said, he's going to probably end up at Ole Miss. I think that that's where things are trending right now. He did commit to Florida State, but those commitments aren't binding. Just like any other guy. Once you enroll and you kind of get there. So I mean, it's still fair game for these guys, and I think it kind of goes back to the fact that just with everything going on, I think you're going to see a lot of these guys that try to stay closer, somewhere where they're a little bit more familiar with. And I remember Fabian Lovett, whenever he was recruited out of high school, he actually took an official visit to Florida. He was between Mississippi State, a school that he had been committed to under Mullen, but backed off that early, was with Florida, and he was with Ole Miss. And it was actually at one point he wanted to go to Florida from what I had been hearing. But his family did like the fact of him being close, and that's where you saw him go back to Mississippi State. And it was funny when I saw him commit to Florida State, I was like, man, the family really changed their tunes. They were really big on him staying close to home. And, here we are. Now it's looking like he might actually do that and go to Ole Miss. So, that's a big hit for Florida State, and the fact that they really hit the transfer portal hard if he doesn't end up there. And I know that they were looking to him they liked the fact that he had some years to play going forward. He wasn't like a Band-Aid guy to where he's a 1-year guy and you lose him. So that's a pretty big hit. You never want to lose a guy in the trenches. And I think that, I think it's trending towards Lovett probably ending up at Ole Miss.
Last thing for you, Blake. So back to the virtual recruiting trips or whatever, usually guys have been able to come on their recruiting visits, and then in the summer they get to come on campus for, a 1-day camp or what have you. So coaches can actually see you do some work on the field. With possibly athletes coming back June 1st, June 5th, or 15th, is there any talk about being able to allow recruiting visits on campus at all?
That I haven't heard. I mean, for right now, where we're at is, the dead period is going to go through June. July normally is a dead period in its own. So I don't know if maybe they kind of switch things up just since there's been so many months of a dead period. I don't know if they make an exemption this year and they open up July, or, I haven't heard anything there. But at this point, it looks like a lot of kids are looking to at least to where visits and official visits and all those kind of things are going to be probably starting up in the fall. I don't know that that's really something dead set, 100%. I have no idea how July is going to go, if they're going to make any exemptions there. But for right now, it's looking like fall.
All right. Well, Blake, let everybody know where they can check out your work.
Yeah, absolutely. Swamp 24/7. It's 24/7 Sports, Florida Gators site. Myself, Thomas Goldcamp, and Bod Redman. We've been churning out the content, man. Recruiting never sleeps; it never dies. So I've been very busy, especially with all the virtual visits. I try to recap what's going on visit wise each day. Like I said, Florida's doing 3 or 4 a day. So it's busy time for me, man. I was kind of looking forward early on in the quarantine, man. I was kind of relaxed a little bit. Now it's balls to the walls, man. And I've been staying after it. So we've been pretty busy the last couple weeks.
Well, good stuff, Blake. You and your family stay safe. Have a great Memorial Day weekend, and we'll talk to you soon, bud.
Thanks. You as well.
That's Blake Alderman. You can follow him on Twitter at Blake_Alderman. And we're going to get to our This Day in Sports, which is brought to you by The Best Restoration. Do you have COVID-19 concerns? Do what everyone is doing and hire The Best Restoration to fully sanitize and sterilize your home or office. Visit their offices this week for a free bottle of hand sanitizer when you mention the code Shane. Call them 352-234-8994. This day in sports history, back in, none of us were around, but back in 1948, New York Yankee Joe DiMaggio hits for the cycle. And if you're not sure what a cycle is, that's a single, a double, a triple, and a home run all in the same game. We're going to take a timeout here. When we come back, we're going to be joined by Dara Torres, the most decorated female Olympic athlete of all time. You're watching and listening to Pot Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. We'll be right back.
Time out! Time out! Hey! Time out! Time out! Time out! There we go. Good.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills.
Let's give them something to cheer for now.
Our Gridiron sponsors are Crime Prevention Security, small enough to serve you, large enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Peachland Dentistry, Gator Nation's #1 choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte and surrounding areas. Area Rug Masters, your #1 choice for rug cleaning. And Pound Hurt, preferred personal injury attorneys.
Our touchdown sponsors are Campus USA Credit Union, Celebration Point Town Center, Tropical Smoothie Cafe, The Keys Grill and Piano Bar, The Digital Mortgage Guy, Adams Ribs, Cloud9 Spa, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Center State Bank, Gator Bait Media, and Davis Chevrolet.
If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, you can visit our website, potupwithshane.com, and click on the advertise button or call Freddie Wiebe at 352-284-3733.
Again, thank you for all the great businesses that support the show. Please remember, if you like what we are doing here, thank our sponsors and support the businesses that support us.
He's looking, still looking. He's going for the end zone. He's got a touchdown.
Welcome back to Pot Up with Matthews in the morning from the Crime Prevention Security Systems Studios. Large enough to serve you, small enough to care. It's a Thursday edition, and we're going to go now to the Titan MR hotline. And we're joined by the most decorated female U.S. Olympic athlete in history. And that's former Gator Dara Torres. Good morning, Dara. How are you?
Good. Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well. Where do we start? First of all, I like to talk to all of my athletes, kind of how they got involved. I mean, you're a girl that grew up in California. What got you into swimming?
I had 4 older brothers growing up, and whatever they would do, I would do. And I was a little young to get in the pool when they were swimming, but my mom would bring me to the pool. I was on the bleachers. I think nowadays you call it ADD, but back then they said I was hyperactive. And so I was always like running all over the place, up and down the bleachers, falling. And my mom's like, I don't care what age she is. We have to get her in the pool just to get that energy out. So that's kind of how I started because my brothers were doing it. And then once I started getting a little faster than them, they all started and I just stopped and retired. And then I just kept going. So I just kind of fell in love with it.
Well, I got my dog barking in the background
Nice.
here. So at age 14, you break a world record. Did that just come as a surprise, or did you know that you had a chance to break this world record?
Honestly, I was at a swim meet where I had a crush on a guy, and he came up to me before my race, and I was just swimming. I mean, I was going fast, but I didn't even know what the world record was. And he had asked me what the world record was. I said, "Look, I don't know." And he went and looked it up, and came back. He's like, "Yeah, you're going to go a lot faster than this. Is the time you're going to go." And he told me the time, and I was like, "All right." And I think because I was crushing on the boys so much, I got up, swam, and literally did the time to the T that he had said I should do, and which is not easy in swimming. And so, yeah, that was when I broke my first world record. And I don't think it really sunk in at 14 to know that no one else is faster than you in the world. I was, this kind of punk kid bouncing off the walls, and couldn't really appreciate it. I don't think at that age.
We're speaking with Dara Torres on the Titan MR hotline. So, Dara, growing up, most football players, basketball players, whatever, they'll have an idol, in their sport. Was there someone that you idolized as a swimmer growing up?
There was a girl, and she was the one who actually held the world record before me. And it wasn't so much with the type of athlete she was physically, it was the type of person she was. So I remember a couple of things that happened. I was at a swim meet, and I was in the heat before her. We were in the same lane, but she was waiting for my heat to go, and got up on the blocks, dove in. It was a false start, got out, and the pool was freezing. And then there was a malfunction, and they were trying to fix something, and I was just sitting there shivering. And here I was, this kid that just broke her world record, and she basically came up to me, gave me her towel, and put it over me. And I just thought that was really cool. And then there was another instance when we were at the Olympic Games in 1984, my first Olympics, and I swam horrible in the prelims, like horrible, probably a couple of seconds slower than what I did at Olympic trials. And so they were thinking about replacing me at night with her. And she basically took me under her wing that day because the finals were that night, and really because I was really upset, got my mind off of it. We were doing puzzles. She had me watching soap operas, like just so I wouldn't be thinking about what the coaches were trying to decide. And I just thought that was really cool as a human being to help someone knowing that they had just taken your world record and they were swimming faster than you. And, it was just really cool that she did that. And so I really looked up to her a lot.
Good deal. Let's go way back. So you're growing up in California, gets time to go to college. You decide to go to the University of Florida, a girl from California going all the way across the country. What made you choose the University of Florida?
Okay, so I have to tell you that I was looking at Stanford and University of Texas and USC. And the coach really just reeled me in. I mean, first of all, I went to a visit in March and the weather was beautiful. And I'd never, I've been to Gainesville once, and that was for a swim meet, and it was like in March also. So the weather was beautiful, and they were getting ready for NCAA, so they all ramped up, and the team seemed great, and it just seemed like the right environment. And they also had a really good journalism school at UF, and so that was what I wanted to get into when I was done with college, was television. So I picked there, and I'll never forget my first day flying in from California. There was no like terminal, and so they had to bring stairs up to the plane. And my mom, one used to, like, I grew up in Beverly Hills, so I'm like, what is this, And we get off the plane, and literally I was like I could not breathe. It was so humid, and I'd never like been in anything like that before. I was like, oh my God. My mom started laughing. She's like, honey, enjoy your 4 years here, And I was like, oh my gosh. So it was really, I happened to visit in a time when I didn't know what actually it was like in Gainesville. But it was a learning experience, and I really grew to love Gainesville and the school. It took a little while, but being from Beverly Hills. So
Yeah, no doubt. Well, the swimmers, they're crazy. Swimmers are
yeah.
crazy. Had crazy parties all the time, but then they'd be up at 5 a.m. doing workouts. How in the world did how are y'all able to do that?
That's a good question, because I remember, like, one of the first parties I went to, I didn't even really drink going into this party. I was always kind of a clean cut athlete. And I thought, well, I kind of have to fit in, so I'll just drink a little bit with them. And they were the swimming parties were known, and the next day, the coach, it was our first morning workout. And the next day, I guess the coach smelled the alcohol in everyone's breath. It's really weird in a pool. When you're in a pool, you can smell something like 100 yards away. It's crazy. And so we're in there, and he takes the 50-meter pool indoors, and there's a bulkhead on each side, and he narrows the bulkhead to about here, and which is maybe like 15 yards. He said, okay, everyone get in the middle. We're going to do 200 turns nonstop. And
Oh,
people were vomiting left and right. And I was like, all right, I learned my lesson here, and it wasn't worth it for me to drink just to fit in, when he did something like that. And we realized like how bad off we were after drinking like that.
oh goodness. We're speaking with Dara Torres on the Titan MRI Hotline. Dara, you've written a couple of books, and in one of your books, you talk about an eating disorder that you had, and mostly of that was when you were in college. Talk a little bit about that and how you've been able to help other female athletes.
That was probably one of the darkest times of my life. I was a freshman, and our coach meant well, but he was really into how we looked. So his philosophy was, if you look intimidating on a starting block, you'll intimidate your competitors and you'll swim faster. So he used to weigh us every Mondays when we got to practice in the afternoon. And I started to just starve myself. I'm like, well, I'll make weight. I just don't eat for like a day or whatever. And he didn't really have a line of thinking of how much we were supposed to weigh. He just look at us and say, okay, this is what you weigh. Next week, you got to like lose 3 pounds or 2 pounds or whatever. And if you didn't make weight, see, practices were so hard there. Like, they're crazy. This coach was crazy that we only had 3 practices off a week. And that was Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays. And you didn't want to go to extra practices. So if you didn't make weight, you had to go to extra practices. And I was craving for those days off. And so it just kind of, something happened where someone said, hey, do you know if you binge and purge, you can lose weight? And it was another athlete from another sport. And I'm like, oh, really? And I was naive and young. And I don't know, it just came like a habit. And I ended up, battling bulimia the whole entire time I was in college there. And even after, until I went and got help. So it was like about a 5-year battle. And, I talk about it because back then it really wasn't talked about much. And I tried to talk to a health professional about it, and they just kind of poo-pooed it and was like, oh, you'll be fine. And so I didn't really realize the severity of it until I actually went and got help years later. And so to me, what I try to tell young girls and boys, because boys get it too, is to not be afraid to tell someone you have this issue. That's the biggest step, and the hardest step is to admit you have a problem, and then they'll get help for you. And that was my hardest thing. Was I was just almost so embarrassed, and the fact that I told one person and they were like, oh no, you're fine. I was like, all right. And I just kind of ignored it and should have really gotten help.
That's good stuff. So talk about, you've been to the Olympics 5 times. I mean,
Mhm.
that's a long time. Uh, how old were you? Like 17 in the first one you went to?
Yeah.
Just talk about that experience a little bit.
So my first Olympics, I really was this kid. I didn't understand the magnitude of what being in Olympic Games was. I remember walking in and seeing like Michael Jordan and Mary Lou Retton and all these like and Carl Lewis, and I'm like, and I was like, oh, I want to get autographs. So kind of forgetting, well, wait a minute, like I'm here too as an Olympic athlete, and so it really was an experience that I couldn't really take in. As I said earlier, I was super nervous and didn't swim too well in the prelims, but they actually let me swim in the finals, and we won a gold, which was great. And I swam much faster, but it really was an experience I couldn't appreciate because I was so young and immature. And then by the time I got to my fifth Olympic Games, I literally had walked in and I was like thanking all the workers who spoke Chinese. It was in Beijing and they probably had no idea what I was saying, but I was like, oh my God, thank you so much for your help. And, I was just taking it all in and thanking everyone. And so it was, I just saw things much differently through the eyes of a 41-year-old in 2008 than I did through the eyes of a 17-year-old in 1984. So it was a much different experience for me
We got
from
a
my first and fifth.
Yeah, we got a text here from Joe. Joe wants to know which Olympic city was your favorite.
All the cities were great. I would say my least favorite was Korea. Seoul, Korea. It just, it was a time when times weren't good and guys were walking around with machetes and you couldn't really go anywhere. And it
Well,
just, I don't know, it just wasn't a great time. But my favorite one I'd have to say is Sydney. I mean, I grew up in LA. I went to LA, and I should say that's my favorite because my friends and family were there. But I had never been to Sydney, and it is just such a beautiful city. And the swimmers for them were like their rock stars. So any swimmer that was there, they treated so well, and it was just such a well-run Olympics and just a beautiful, beautiful country. So I really loved Australia, probably the best.
my question is, so like preparing in college, training in college, how much different was that when you train as an Olympic athlete?
Well, it's we're comparing apples and oranges because our college coach, I don't know if you remember Randy Reese, was like nutso. The great thing about him is he really would think outside the box and come up with new innovative things. I mean, I think you saw us on the football fields pulling sleds and
Mhm.
doing these wheels up the ramps in the football stadium and just doing like crazy things. But I don't think he knew where the limit was, so he pushed us harder than we probably should have been pushed. So college training was a little bit different, but there's a lot of college swimmers that train for the Olympics with their college coaches. I think the only thing is different is you don't have the NCAAs or the SECs that you're training for, when you're outside of college. And I think for me, things changed when I got older because my body was a lot different than when I was in college, and I couldn't do as much as I could when I was younger. So that I would say would be the big differences for me when I was training for Olympic Games and when I was training in college.
You were the first female athlete to be included in the Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition. How was that?
That was awesome. I think the biggest thing for me was my brother's friends. Like I said, I had four older brothers, and they always looked at me as like the tomboy, and and they would never like ask me to the prom or anything. So I just wanted to be in it, so my brother's friends can be like, "Oh wow, she's actually a woman," And I don't know. It was a very scary thing because they had me. My first shoot was walking on a pool deck in between Elle Macpherson and Kathy Ireland, and it was the most intimidating thing I ever did. So I remember I was trying to walk like them with like their hips swaying and stuff. I'm like, I'm an athlete. I got to walk like with my hips swaying, like I'm wearing high heels. So I had asked Elle, like, can you show me how to walk? And she kind of did in the locker room before we went out for our shoot. So we start our first thing and we're walking towards the camera, and the editor's watching us, and we turn around and we're looking over our shoulders and at the pool, and we're walking back, and all of a sudden the editor's like, stop. And we're like, what? And she's like, why are you walking like that? I'm like, well, she's not talking to me because I just learned how to walk. And I'm like, who is she talking to? And she said, Dara, come here. And I'm like, okay. And I come over there. She's like, why are you walking like that? I'm like, well, I'm just trying to fit in with Elle and Kathy. She's like, if I wanted someone like Elle and Kathy, I would have hired another Elle and Kathy. I hired you. Walk the way you're supposed to walk. And I was like, okay. So that was kind of my first lesson, is just be yourself. And so it was a very intimidating time, but it was really obviously a once in a lifetime situation where you're in the Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue. And it was really, it was a lot of fun. And I made sure that my brother's friends saw the issues.
That's good stuff. We got another text here on the Titan MRI text line. William wants to know, are you thinking of participating in your 6th Olympics?
All right, listen, I am 53 right now. There is no way. I went to my 6th Olympic trials in 2012, and I actually swam my second fastest time I'd ever done in Olympic trials before, but the girls were just getting faster. And I ended up 4th. I missed the team by 9/100ths. And at 45 years old and having a 6-year-old and just realizing I really do need to hang up my swimsuits. I wasn't angry. If I was angry, I would have tried again, but I wasn't angry after that swim. I just was like, all right, that's it. And so I don't have the stamina to do it. Like when you swim in an Olympic trials, you have to swim a race 3 times. And I don't have that in me. If I could swim once, I might be able to do it, but I just couldn't swim preliminaries, semifinals, and finals. My body is too old for that. So thank you for the question, but I'm done.
You're done. So let me ask you this. If I said, Dara, we have the SEC swimming championships in Auburn this week,
Right.
how many girls could you beat if we went there today?
I think I could beat a couple. I might be able even to get in the top 8. But I couldn't win. Those girls are a lot faster now, but I might be able to get in the top 8.
Yeah, that's good stuff. We got another text here from Lisa, and she says, you have a daughter. Does your daughter swim?
My daughter did swim. I really introduced her to all sports when she was younger. She's 14 now, and she swam for a little while and then just really hated it. And I said, look, you're not going to come home and be on your computer every day, so you have to find another sport to do. Something that you will love. And so she tried out for lacrosse and absolutely loves it. She was in 8th grade this year, and she made the only 8th grader to make the varsity high school team. So she's only been playing a year and a half. So she's doing pretty good, but obviously everything got stopped right now. And we have a little wall ball that she practices on. And I know nothing about lacrosse, and she loves that too, that I know nothing about it. And she used to hate when I'd, scream for her when she was in the pool swimming, and, not crazy, just like, go Tessa. And she'd hear it on the playback on the video and get mad at me. So this way, everyone's screaming on the field. I don't know what's going on, and she likes that much better. So she's a lacrosse player.
That's good. Betty has a text on the Titan MR text line. Do you stay in contact more with your UF teammates or your Olympic teammates?
God, that's a good question. I would say actually UF. The Olympic teammates you're with for maybe like 5 weeks, 6 weeks, and that's it until another 4 years. Your UF teammates you're with 4 years straight. And I do keep in touch. Thank God for social media, and you're able to reach out and try to find people maybe you haven't talked to in a while, but excuse me, still getting emails. I still, my roommate, Paige Zemina, I'm still really close with. And, I try to keep in touch with a lot of my teammates from college because, you're a family. You're there for 4 years. You're a family.
Jeff has a question here on Facebook Live, brought to you by Pound Hurt, your preferred business interruption attorneys. He wants to know, why are swimmers able to swim faster these days?
Things change. It's back when I swam, the school of thought for the weight room is the heavier you lift in the weight room, the stronger you'll be in the pool. But it's not like that anymore. It's more about being efficient. And if you look at someone like Michael Phelps, he's tall, he has like the perfect swimmer's body, but he's not the biggest guy out there. He's just the most efficient swimmer in the pool and really has a feel for the pool. And so it's all about different stroke technique, and pools get faster. I know people say, well, how's that possible? But they figure out how the depth of the pool is important, how the water flows out of the pool is important, the lane lines, the swimming equipment changes, your swimmers, there's just something different about how they train now than there was back then. And so the training's really gotten better and better to make you faster and faster. I mean, look, when I was 14, 15 years old and broke that American and world record, I broke it again at 41 years old and was going a second and a half faster. So things just, things change. A lot of it is technology and technique with your swimming stroke in the pool.
Todd asks on Facebook Live, brought to you by Pound Hurt, what is Dara up to these days professionally? And does she have any children that swim as a sport, which we discussed? So what are you doing professionally?
Professionally. So I actually started a podcast too. We had our first our first Olympian on. It's called Hanging with Champions. And we had Caleb Dressel, who is a UF alum, and Tim Tebow came on too, which was a lot of fun because he's a big fan of Tim's. So we had him come on, and we just started this, which has been fun. But, I'm also a spokesperson for some different companies, and I love giving motivational talks. That's really what I love to do. There's a lot of athletes that love to go on and do Q&A, but they don't feel comfortable telling their story or talking. And so I really love to do that, whether it's, high-end companies or, young kids, young girls. I love to be able to give back and share my stories and hopefully make a dent in someone's life with what I've learned in my life.
All right, we got a text from Larry on the Titan MR text line. You got 12 Olympic medals. He wants to know, where do you keep them?
Well, for a while, I was keeping them under my bed when I was growing up, and my mom was very upset with that. So in 2000, when I won 5, I gave one of my golds to my mom, and she lived out in Sun Valley, Idaho. And I still have mine under my bed. She's like, Dara, you really need to do something. Someone's going to come in. I was living in New York, and she's like, someone's going to come in and steal them. So I put them in a safety deposit box at a bank. But then what I found out is when I go do appearances and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to go get my medals, the bank was like closed at 4 and I couldn't get them. So it was kind of confusing. But I remember at Christmas time going out to Sun Valley to visit my mom. And, she was so adamant about me hiding my medals. And I walk in and literally there's like a plexiglass with a gold medal and the light shining on it. I'm like, wait a minute, like, why isn't mine hitting? Like, you tell me to hide my medals and put them in a bank, and here you have like lights on it and people walk in and see it. And so I have 11 of my medals in a safe where I live, but I won't put them in a bank anymore, and they're not under my bed anymore, and they're pretty much tarnished because I really don't take them out that much. So
Good stuff. Well, Jan on Facebook Live, brought to you by Pound Hurt. She says, beautiful interview, beautiful and smart Dara. What a great, lovely woman you are. You look like a teenager to me. Gorgeous, and thanks for sharing your story.
wow, thank you.
And Keith wants to know, are you ever going to be honorary Mrs. Two Bits for a football game?
I already was. I was out there. It was maybe 3 years ago, and it was so much fun because I just remember that growing up. I remember being in there and him going around each section and doing that. And so I had the yellow shirt on with the fake tie, and I got out there, and they were showing me what Spurrier did, and then what I think one of the golfers did. And I'm like, well, what am I going to do? I'm a swimmer, like before I get out there and do the Two Bits little chant. And so I basically literally dropped midfield and started doing push-ups. And I don't know why, I just started doing push-ups. The whole crowd went like crazy. And I'm like, all right, I actually better get up now. I wanted to do 20, but I lost count. And so I got up and then started doing it. And it was a blast. And they had only had 2 other girls do it together, and the rest had all been guys. So it was nice to be able to represent the females out there and go do the Two Bits cheer. So I was really psyched about it. It was really one of the highlights. I had so much fun.
Fred has a text here. He wants to know, you're an amazing speaker. Where can people hear and learn more about your speaking engagements?
Oh, well, I do have a website, daratorres.com, and I have lots of clips on there, but I don't know if I actually usually put a whole entire speech on my website, but there are little bits and clips on there that you can see if you'd like. And maybe I'll do that. Maybe sometime I'll put a speech on there so people can listen to my whole speech. But I usually save that for when I actually go and do the appearances.
So Dara, obviously, I mean, the things you did at the Olympic Games, all the medals you won, but what is your greatest moment as a Florida Gator?
I have to tell you, it was hard for me to really get into the football spirit, no offense. But when I first got there, I grew up in California and LA. We had UCLA, we had USC, we had UCSD, all these colleges. And I'd never been to a college town. And so I never forget waking up, going to morning workout, and all the streets, Ben Hill, Griffin Lane, everything was closed. And I'm like, God, why is everything closed? Like the game doesn't start till like 4 o'clock. This is nuts. And I go to my 2-hour practice, I come out, and there's people walking around in orange and blue everywhere. I'm like, what are these people doing? Like, why are these adults like painted in orange and blue? And my God, these guys are idiots, it really, I was so turned off when I first got there. I'm being honest. I was so turned off, and because I'd never been around something like that. And as the months went on, I was like, you know what? Actually, this is really cool. Like getting in the spirit, and people are really behind the Florida Gators and this whole town. And so it took me a little bit to understand like what it was like to be a Florida Gator and what it meant to the fans that were there cheering on all the different teams and the different sports. So it took me a while to get into it, but once I did, I was like, wow, this is just it for me. I can't say there's one great proud moment because it was just so awesome to be a Florida Gator once I understood what it meant. I do know that at one point, Emmett Smith and I both won SEC Athlete of the Year, and they flew us up to Destin to get that award. And that was really fantastic to be able to share that honor with Emmett, and to both of us be there representing University of Florida, both for the male and female side of this award. So I have to say that was pretty special too. But just the overall feeling of being a Florida Gator was unbelievable. It just took me a little while to understand the magnitude of what it was to be in a college town and to appreciate the fans.
Do you ever get an opportunity to come back and talk to the swim team?
Yeah, I was there 3 months ago. It was really cool. Every time I go, the town grows more and more. I mean, and when I was there, I was like, "Where's Skeeters? Where's Joe's Deli? Where are all these places?" And they're all gone. And it's so different. So every time I go, it's always so different. It's usually I try to come up every couple years, but I was up there filming something at the pool, and it was planned that I'd get to speak to the women's team. So I went in and we just had the one pool, and they finally built at the O'Connell Center, which was attached obviously to the basketball arena. But then they built the outdoor pool, I think maybe like my sophomore, junior year. And now they have like a whole facility for the swimmers, because we just had a locker room and that was it. And now they have a whole like meeting room and where the coaches are. And it's really, really beautiful. And so I got to go in there and sit down with the girls before they were supposed to swim NCAAs. Unfortunately, it got canceled. But before they're supposed to swim NCAAs and talk with them. And I really enjoy doing that. I enjoy telling the stories of when I was there. I enjoy hearing from them and talking to them and, answering their questions. And any way that I can give back to University of Florida, I try to. And so I was honored that they asked me to come back and be able to do that.
Last thing for you, Dara. I know you're big into fitness. I've seen on your Twitter feed during this quarantine how you're doing these different exercises for folks. Talk a little bit about, how important fitness is to you.
Well, it's very important. I like to work out at least once a day. If I don't, I'm okay with it. I think when I was younger, if I didn't, I'd be like pulling my hair out. But I realized when we all got into quarantine that that we're all in this together, and it was going to be something different. And how is everyone going to cope, like being home 24/7? And for me, I was trying to think out like, well, how can I give back? And so I thought, you know what, I'm going to start posting an exercise a day. And I didn't know how long this was going to be. I think I'm on exercise like 54 or something. And I had to skip a few days here and there, but I was trying to think how I can give back. And so what I did is I came up with an exercise a day, and I try to show how to do it for beginners. And then how, if you're a little more advanced, to do the exercise. And so anyone can basically do it. But I was hoping that people at home can at least do something to relieve stress, or just to get away from someone else in the house and have a little time themselves, and just, do some exercises that will, like I said, relieve stress, but also try to keep them fit while they're stuck at home in quarantine. And the other reason why I did this is I try to do it where you don't need equipment. You can use, cans of food, or, the side of a table or your couch or whatever it is. You can use equipment at home that you don't have to go to a gym to exercise. So that's really why I try to do it, to give back and just to keep people sort of moving and not just sitting around at home.
We got one last text from Donna. She says you do a lot of charity work with different foundations. Is there one that's special to you?
Yeah, I do it because I love to give back. The one that's probably most special is I work with Princess Charlene from Monaco on her drowning prevention campaign and charity. There's so many kids and adults that drown every year, and considering that the pool and water is so near and dear to my heart, I think it's just really important. There's a lot of people out there that aren't lucky enough to learn how to swim. And so I'm fortunate that she asked me to be on her charity and to be able to give back and teach kids and adults how to swim. So that's probably the charity that's most near and dear to my heart.
Oh, that's good stuff. Dara, I appreciate you taking time to join the program today. Stay safe, and we'll talk to you soon.
I will. I just got to tell you, it's so great to see you. And I was so surprised when you said that you had a podcast, because I just remember you being very shy in school. And
Well, I got roped into doing this podcast. You did all the talking.
Great job. No, you're doing a great job. And congrats. And to you. And it looks like you have a beautiful family. And I'm very happy for you.
Thanks, Dara. Take care, girl.
Thanks. Bye.
That's Dara Torres, the most decorated female U.S. Olympic athlete of all time. We're going to take a time out here. When we come back, we'll wrap up today's program. You're watching and listening to Pod Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Be right back.
Time out! Time out! Hey! Time out! Time out! Time out! There we go. Good.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills.
Let's give them something to cheer for now.
Our Gridiron sponsors are Crime Prevention Security, small enough to serve you, large enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Peachland Dentistry, Gator Nation's #1 choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte and surrounding areas. Area Rug Masters, your #1 choice for rug cleaning. And Pound Hurt, preferred personal injury attorneys.
Our touchdown sponsors are Campus USA Credit Union, Celebration Point Town Center, Tropical Smoothie Cafe, The Keys Grill and Piano Bar, The Digital Mortgage Guy, Adams Ribs, Cloud9 Spa, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Center State Bank, Gator Bait Media, and Davis Chevrolet.
If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, you can visit our website, podupwithshane.com, and click on the advertise button or call Freddie Wiebe at 352-284-3733.
Again, thank you for all the great businesses that support the show. Please remember, if you like what we are doing here, thank our sponsors and support the businesses that support us.
He's looking, still looking. He's going for the end zone. He's got a touchdown.
Welcome back. Pod Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Thursday edition. Glad you folks joined in. Hey, at Center State Bank, we put business first. We're the largest community bank in the state of Florida. Center State has 5 convenient Alachua County locations to serve you better. Come in and experience the Center State difference. To learn more, visit centerstatebank.com. Center State Bank, member FDIC. Tomorrow's program, we have Jamie Spironis joining us, who is Coach Spurrier's Director of Football Ops for 20 plus years here at Florida, South Carolina, and also with the Washington Redskins. He'll have some great stories for us. Also, Jackie Spreads will be in the house, who is brought to you by Peachland Dentistry, Gator Nation's #1 choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte and surrounding areas. Don't forget, go to our Facebook Live page, Pod Up with Matthews in the Morning, like and share it, and follow us, all that good stuff. Also, you can also subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Really want to thank Blake Alderman from Swamp 24/7 Sports for joining the program today, talking Gator recruiting, although it's virtual. Gators are doing very well. And of course, the most decorated female Olympic athlete of all time, Dara Torres, former Gator swimmer, joining the program. Can't thank her enough. That's going to be a wrap on today's show, folks. Make sure you tune in tomorrow. We'll be back same time, same place. Take care.